This was a hard month to get through, to say the least. Really, the main issue I'm having is my hormone levels. So, as I probably mentioned in the last few episodes, things have not been lining up the way they should. And in an effort to combat that, I was put on a new T blocker in January to see what that would do. So, I knew something was very, very wrong this month. So instead of waiting, like the doctor said, until March, I wanted to go in for the blood test in February. And my intuition was correct, to say the least. Before being put on HRT in the first place, I received a blood test to kind of get what my levels were at very generally. And basing this number's months off of that initial reading, I'm more of a man now than I've ever been. And you can wager why that would be such a hard thing for me. It's almost like I've got to go through male puberty all over again. But it's even worse this time because I had no idea that there were better options out there. I very much enjoy being a woman, so the idea that now my skin is breaking out again, my hair is getting greasy, and body hair is just growing in as thick as it used to, it's hard. It's very hard, to say the least. But I am able to find some good things out of it. Like I said, my hair has started to become greasy again, and people tell me that it grows a little faster that way, and I'm kind of inclined to agree with them, as my hair has gotten pretty long, actually. It's hard to say if the grease has increased my hair volume by a whole lot, but, well, gotta find something to keep me going through this sort of dark spot I'm in right now. To kind of lighten the mood a little bit, I figure I would talk about a bit of a fun thing I was able to do this month. So I have a friend we've been watching anime together with. First, started off with Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and then a few episodes of Part 2 of Lupin the Third. And our most recent acquisition is Sailor Moon. This kind of makes me think back to when I was in elementary school. I may have mentioned this in other videos, but I didn't really have cable growing up. The idea of Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, all these other shows that kids my age were raving about. I didn't have that luxury, unless I saw my grandparents, and that was only about 3 times a year. And one of the big things I remember liking with Cartoon Network was the Powerpuff Girls. It was a show I very much loved, but I felt very, shall we say, guilty about it. The idea that it felt very much like a show meant for little girls, but yet I was a little boy at the time, and I liked it. It was something I very much kept secret, as I felt ashamed of it, and my parents ever found out, I figured something bad would happen. But then I remember when the reboot came out, and I was not the only one excited for it. Everybody else in my friend group was excited, and just felt like I kind of wasted my time. I was afraid of something for no reason. I was not alone. Everybody else loved the show. Fast forward a few other years, and I'm not really sure who produced it, but it was another show called Witch. It was an acronym, so it was WITCH, if I'm spelling it right. It only lasted for about a season, and that was probably my introduction to the magical girl genre. And unlike the Powerpuff Girls, where I felt kind of this shame, a little bit of remorse for watching it, I didn't care. The show was just awesome. If anybody was going to make fun of me for it, I'd just be like, you know what? Screw you. This is a great show. And so, yeah, bringing up magical girl genres, I mean, this is basically the epitome of that. Much like when people like to talk about forbidden love, they like to bring up the story of Romeo and Juliet. It's not so much that both properties invented the genre, but those are two examples that people would say are the best, or at the very least the most famous. But that preface I just gave, you can imagine that I'm really liking it so far. This is only just season 1. I know there's at least 5 seasons, but this season is the entire length of Nadia in The Secret of Blue Water. It's gonna be a while before I get to the end of this. But one of the things I like about the show that I honestly didn't expect is how relatable I found Usagi. It's a strange thing because, yeah, I mean, for a while I was basically going through female puberty. It's kind of stalled at the moment. But at the same time, it was something I could very much relate to. The idea that it was hard for her to get out of bed in the morning. The idea that she was hungry most of the time. And it just kind of got me thinking how my life would have been different if I went through junior high school, went through puberty as a girl instead of a boy. And I was not expecting this magical girl show to be able to make me ask that particular question. And just as a bit of an aside, if anybody is curious, my personal favorite has to be Mars. But if I was ever going to cosplay any of them, I think I could pull off Jupiter, alright? After all, I've got the long brown hair and, well, some people say I kind of have greenish eyes. I'm not really sure if the lighting here is really showing that off properly, but yeah, kind of similar to Jupiter in that way. So that is one piece of Japanese media that I consumed. And no, that was not meant to be a play on words. One Piece is just way too much of a dedication for me. But what I did consume instead was this manga called Wandering Sun. It also goes by another name, but I only just know it as Wandering Sun. And let me tell you, make sure you're in a good headspace before you read it, because I was not. And let's just say some sections were very hard to get through. To basically summarize, it's a story about a boy who wished that she could be a girl, and a girl who wishes that he could be a boy. It's a surprisingly sprawling manga. It starts when both of our main characters are in the 5th grade. And by the time the manga ends, they're both about to go off to college. And the thing that's really interesting about their dynamic is how they help each other out. So, the girl who wants to be a boy. His family loves buying him all these fancy dresses, all these really girly things, and obviously he's not into that sort of thing. However, the boy who wants to be a girl kind of wants this stuff, and so he gives it to her. And along the way, they just learn to be able to love themselves. However, there is quite a fair bit of a dark edge to this story. I remember for a while I was very much jealous of people that realized that they were trans younger in life. But this manga has made me consider that such knowledge can really be a curse. Junior high was hard enough without knowing that I did for sure want to be a girl at that time. If I had that knowledge, I probably just would have gone completely insane with knowing full well what is going to happen to my body and knowing that I have no power to stop it whatsoever. Much like life itself, for the dark edges, there is honestly some very nice, heartfelt moments in there. It just amazes me how the author can capture the idea of gender euphoria just through simple facial expressions like blushing a little bit when the character smiles. It's a very simple yet effective way to be able to convey how presenting the way you want to present can just generate so much happiness. At the same time, it also really conveys the downs when puberty starts kicking in for both of them, and, well, it's just a ride that they have to endure. This is definitely a piece of literature that I recommend, but there are a lot of little asterisks I have to put in front of it. First off, not only is this going to wring out your emotions, but there are some very intense scenes, some of which that are very unsettling. Not so much in like a gory sense, but more in the idea of uncomfortable. And especially if you're trans as well, you can very much relate to the struggles of the characters, and I feel like that makes it more impactful. But probably the one complaint I have about the manga, and this is honestly a really weird one, but I would have preferred if it was actually a book, in all honesty. I mean, I do like the idea that I don't have to try to imagine what the character looks like, what these settings look like, and whatnot, but I don't know, there's just something about the long form of a book I feel like could have really delved more into the psyche of these characters. On top of that, I was enjoying it so much, I kind of want more of it. As I mentioned in the last video, there was talk about starting up a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Well, thankfully the one person I was afraid would recognize me didn't. Or at least, I don't think he did. There was a few times he was just kind of like... He was staring at me, which felt a little uncomfortable, but he didn't tell everybody what my dead name was, so it's good enough for me. The game itself was fun, although it was quite annoying that all the people that didn't know me kept referring to me as he. Part of me was hoping I'd be a bit more obvious, but at the same time, it's hard to say how much I'm reverting backwards. Maybe I've got the face of a man again. But the game itself, it went fantastically. And the idea that it lasted for 5 hours and the first 3 just kind of went... That impressed me. It impressed me a lot. So I'm part of this server to be able to help train my voice to be able to sound a bit more feminine. And if I can, once a week, I like to just start up a little bit of a, shall we say, talking party. Just as a way to remind myself that I need to speak in a more feminine voice. Because throughout the day, I just have a tendency to drop to about here most of the time. And if I have a cold, it's even a little worse than that. One of the little conversations we had, I found very hilarious. We started talking about guys that we found attractive. I felt like I was in one of those stereotypical slumber parties. It's like, so who do you think is cuter, Rodney or Gerald? Oh, definitely Rodney for sure. But I think the thing that was really hilarious about that conversation is, well, it was me and a whole bunch of other trans women, and each of us had like 1 or 2 men that we were just kind of like, we're kind of feeling something for this. This is weird. And then I'm like, okay, what about girl crushes? There were too many to mention for all of us. We're just kind of like, there's like a few men that look nice, but women, there's just so many more aesthetics. I would not say that I am bi, but there has definitely been a few men I've seen where I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of feeling something for him. But then I can turn around and see a hot woman in a bikini and be like, you know what? No, I like that better. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV. It's mostly just YouTube for me. And I got a recommendation for a very strange video. It just said, how to tell if you're a woman. I was very curious. Was this something more for a trans perspective, or was this meant to be more of a satirical thing? It was definitely satirical, but in a way that felt very hurtful. It was playing into a bunch of female stereotypes. It's just like, do you keep crashing your car? Are you very good at cooking? Just like a lot of other stereotypical feminine things. And obviously, the last little bit they had, it's just like, oh, well, do you have two X chromosomes? Well, you're definitely a woman. But if you don't, you're just a messed up guy. And I get the idea that it was meant to be more tongue-in-cheek or whatnot, but I felt very attacked by that. And on top of that, I'm sure with how many different genetics there are out there, there are probably people born female with XY chromosomes, and vice versa. And it was just one of those things that put it in the perspective. I thought I was kind of above being rattled. I thought that I could just kind of weather a storm. If somebody attacked the beehive, then I would just tell everybody to stand down. But no, I was very ready to start sending the swarm after the attacker. I guess it's good practice because I do know there are people out there that believe everything that was said in that video. So really the other big thing to mention is this month is where I have my birthday. Ordinarily this would be something I would celebrate, but this year it felt a bit more somber. The idea that I'm only 1 year away from being 30 now. And the book I was currently reading, Great Gatsby, I feel put this all into perspective. The idea that it's almost kind of a cutoff. The idea that now it's going to be harder to find people that are single. The idea that now you're just a little older. And I just get this feeling that I'm kind of behind in life as, well, I did the math, and my dad was 28 when he had my oldest brother. Meanwhile, I have yet to even go on a date. Just kind of made me pause and think how much of my life was kind of used up at this point. And on top of that, there's so many people that say once you get 30, it's just all downhill from there. You had the best of your time and, well, you used it up. And I think maybe that's a big thing as well, is I had a very late start. Only now am I going through my proper puberty. Only now do I feel romantic attraction. Only now do I even want to be able to date people. And this is something that a lot of people I find have done several times over by high school. In fact, if most of the guys I hung with at the time is anything to indicate, it seems like by the time you graduate high school, you must have had sex at least 5 times. Like I said, yet to even go on a date. But I will end on a happy note. My aunt sent me cash for my birthday. And there, I was able to pick up a few more items. One of the big things is I was able to pick up a pair of high-heeled shoes. Now, I did buy a pair of heels a long time ago. However, both of them were 2 different sizes. One of them was a size 12 and one was a size 11. I still don't know how that happened. And I've honestly been afraid to wear them because, I feel like I'm too tall already. It seems like the average height for most women is maybe like 5'7", 5'8", and I'm 5'10". If I wear 2-inch heels, I'm an intimidating 6 feet tall. But these heels I was able to pick up were a bit more on the modest size of things. They give me a little bit more volume, but it doesn't make me a giant. And I will admit, it was a bit of a challenge because I'm just like, how do I walk in these things? I was able to ask around, get a little advice, and I'm starting to build up a little more confidence, but not enough to wear them in public. And I think really the main thing for that is people tell me that to wear heels properly, I need to have some sort of stockings. And it seems like every time I wear them, I always rip them by accident because I'll always have like a nail that'll not break off evenly. It'll rip, and then there'll just be one giant line down one of the legs. All in good time, I guess. But hey, if I'm invited to some sort of formal event, now I can do it justice. That's all I have for now. Hopefully this month will be better than the last month. If there's anything else you're curious about, feel free to leave a comment down below. And as always, please, nothing political. Until next time, be yourself, no matter who that is.